I love Avatar: The Last Airbender, as everyone should. It's not only one of the greatest animated shows in history, but it's also one of the best television shows ever made. It's a property that's perfect for live-action adaptation, but as mostly everyone agrees, the attempt to adapt it in 2010 was nothing short of a disaster. M. Night Shyamalan's version was a technical mess, with the writing, the performances, the CGI, and the directing all questionable. But overall, the biggest problem was that it seemed Shyamalan didn't have a good understanding of the source material, which of course led to this. But now to say something really radical, it wasn't all Shyamalan's fault. Yes, the creative licenses he took with the property didn't work at all. Firebenders need a fire source? Dumb. But he also had the insanely difficult task of adapting a 20-episode season of television into a 2-hour movie. It's even harder when your complete third act must be entirely set in the North Pole, where Aang has to both learn waterbending and defend against a giant invading Fire Nation fleet. So how can it be done? How do you adapt one of the greatest children's cartoons ever into a worthy live-action follow-up? Well, how about we tell the story through the eyes of the show's most complex and interesting character, and spoiler alert, that's not Aang. No. Oh, man, that'd be great. What? No, not him. I'm talking about Prince Zuko.
Hello, Zuko here.
Yes, I know the show is called The Last Airbender, and Aang is the definite protagonist in the show, but in a time where anti-heroes are offering a slightly different perspective on the classic hero's journey, the time is perfect for a Zuko film. Yes, in the first season, Zuko is angsty and obsessive, and on the surface might be a hard character to root for, but anyone who knows Zuko understands how fascinating of a character he is. He's a kid outcast by his family and desperate to come home. He's searching for a place to belong. He's a kid who does bad things because he thinks they'll make him happy, but only gets angrier as the turmoil in him keeps growing. Zuko learns throughout the course of the series that the way to restore his honor is by following the path that he chooses for himself. He's not a bad guy, he's tormented, and his arc throughout the first season of Avatar not only would make for a great movie, but would allow us to see the story we know and love through a slightly different perspective. And really, when adapting something as beloved and cherished as Avatar, it's the only way to go. Alright, so what can people expect from a Zuko movie, and how do we tell this story? Well, it starts the same as the show. Long ago, the four nations lived together in harmony, but that all changed when the Fire Nation attacked. Only the Avatar, master of all four elements, could stop him, but then he vanished, and now 100 years have passed. See, that's the world's perspective. But what about Zuko? Everyone's the hero in their own story, and Zuko is no different. He sees history a little differently due to years of growing up in the Fire Nation. To him, long ago the world was in chaos, and that all changed when the Fire Nation sought to restore peace and balance to the world. The only thing posing a threat to the new peace is the Avatar, master of all four elements, but the world hasn't seen him in 100 years, but whoever can capture him would be a hero. Enter Zuko, the exiled prince of the Fire Nation. His whole life he's grown up on stories about how the Avatar is a threat to their existence, and whoever can bring him in would be very highly rewarded. Of course, it's so much more than that for Zuko. He needs to capture the Avatar in order to return home and restore his honor. His hunt leads him to the South Pole, where he's on a collision course with destiny, as Uncle would like to say. The Avatar suddenly appears, and he's pretty easy to capture, but guess what? It's far from what he expects. He gets to know him and finds Aang to be naive with no understanding of the world they're living in now. He's not some fierce warrior looking to destroy everything, it's a 12-year-old kid who just wants to go penguin sledding. But just when Zuko is starting to question himself slightly, that's when the Avatar escapes Zuko's clutches. All the doubt he had is suddenly gone as his ticket home slips through his fingers. Angry at the thought of screwing up, Zuko casts aside any doubt and vows to capture the Avatar now that he's returned. That's your first act. It establishes the world, the stakes, and most importantly, your main character arc. It sets Zuko up to undergo a dramatic shift in perspective as he slowly learns the Avatar might not be the bad guy in the story. Could it be his own father? No, duh. Now we have our middle section of the film, where the real meat of everything is. Now, let's unfortunately shift back to the first Last Airbender adaptation. M. Night Shyamalan had to pick and choose a few key adventures from the first season to make up the fun and games section of the movie, and he chose poorly. Less said about the adaptation of In Prison, the better. Now our movie is framed a different way. We don't see these adventures, we only see their aftermath, where the Avatar has started inspiring people to rise up against the Fire Nation. You could easily include references to Jet, where we meet Jet and his band of guerrilla fighters who are now helping people. The Great Divide, where Zuko would come across two Earth kingdoms that have been enemies for like 100 years but are now at peace, along with the aforementioned imprisoned episode. So we still get references to all the adventures we love, but it's through the eyes of someone who initially thought the Avatar was pure evil. But if Aang is doing all this good, then what the heck is Zuko doing? Throughout all this, Zuko needs a mentor, someone to help guide him through his feelings and teach him some valuable life lessons like don't be an angsty dick. Enter Uncle Iroh. Iroh is the heart and soul of the series, and he will be the same in the movie. Shyamalan did the character a gross disservice, but now is the time to right the wrong. Now is the chance to make the fan-favorite character a vital part of the story. Long ago, Iroh was a feared general in the Fire Nation, but now he's seen as a weakling who lost his spark and will to fight. The opposite is true. Iroh lost his son in a battle, and that grief helped him realize that he wasn't on the right side of history. He comes to see Zuko as a surrogate son, but can't tell him that he needs to change his ways, because Iroh understands that any realization that Zuko will come to must be on his own or else it won't be genuine. Their relationship is everything to this movie. Now, of course, we can't have a Zuko movie without some blue spirit action. It's a really important part for Zuko's character, and Shyamalan's movie glossed over it because Zuko wasn't the main character. That changes now. Eventually, Aang is captured by General Zhao, a ruthless firebender who is also after the Avatar. It's a great thing for the Fire Nation, but a terrible thing for Zuko, who needs Aang to get home. So Zuko disguises himself as a mysterious assassin named the Blue Spirit to rescue Aang so he can kidnap him for himself. Of course, while on his rescue mission, Zuko can't do any firebending because that would give away part of his identity, so he has to use only his wits and own prowess to survive. And this is just one giant metaphor for how Zuko doesn't need his firebending, aka the Fire Nation, to be the hero he so desperately wants to be. Zuko busts Aang out, but he's knocked unconscious in the process, forcing Aang to rescue his rescuer. When he finds out it's Zuko underneath the mask, you have the most important interaction of the whole movie. Now, although I defended Shyamalan before, I must point out how truly awful it was that he cut Aang and Zuko's interaction here. This is crazy important. It shows that Zuko isn't past redemption and Aang sees something good in him. For our movie, this moment is even more important now that Zuko is our main character. It throws Zuko into a tailspin as his enemy is asking him to be friends, causing even more turmoil inside of him. Now this is the part where things get bad for Zuko. He pushes Uncle away, he's nearly killed by Zhao, and he's questioning everything he thought he knew about life. This leads us to the epic finale at the North Pole. The biggest problem with Shyamalan's third act is that it had so much to cram in 20 minutes, but framing it completely around Zuko will solve a lot of the issues with this section. While Zhao bombards the North Pole with his Fire Nation armada, a hidden Zuko branches off on his own to capture Aang himself. There's a huge battle taking place, and it's a bummer we don't get to see it in full force, but at this point we are solely following Zuko as he witnesses the battle as an enemy of both sides. In the end, Zuko gets what he wants. He captures the Avatar, but in doing so, almost everything gets worse. He allows Zhao to do almost irrevocable damage to the world by capturing the Moon Spirit and disrupting the balance in the world. He is leaving the North Pole vulnerable to the Fire Nation attack, and, most importantly for Zuko, his obsessive actions have caused Zhao to capture Iroh and label him a traitor. Zuko has one last conversation with Aang, where the Avatar asks him what the right thing to do is, and Zuko realizes the one thing he's been fighting against the whole movie. He's on the wrong side and needs to correct his mistake. Zuko releases the Avatar to help him stop Zhao, and now the two of them are a team working together in a badass final fight that sees Aang as the giant fish monster wiping out the Fire Nation, while Zuko uses his sneaky assassin skills to save Iroh. Once he does, and surrogate father and son are reunited, it leads to one last battle between Zuko and Zhao. We can have the awesome moment where Zhao is being dragged down by Aang in the Avatar state and actively refused to take Zuko's hand, showing how much Zuko has grown and how much Zhao could not be redeemed. In the end, everything is saved and all is right in the world. Aang continues on his journey to become the Avatar, but Zuko isn't ready to join him yet. He's on his own path with Uncle, and the two ride off into the sunset together. So that's my Zuko movie. There's a lot of detail that I just didn't have time to go into, but ultimately my message is a simple one. There's a way to adapt one of the best animated shows of all time by just focusing on the character who undergoes the best character arc. Avatar stands as a franchise worthy of proper movie representation, but it's gotta be done in a different way if it ever expects to be successful.